What if I told you that health isn't compartmentalized and that mental health affects much more than just the mind? That's the approach the Community Council Health Systems takes, offering a holistic approach to mental health. Joe Watkins, the president and CEO of the CCHS and the host of Joe Watkins State of Independence on this network, joins me to talk about mental health today. What are the challenges we face today? Are they different from before? And what solutions do we have as individuals and as a community? That's all coming up right here, right now. I'm Sam Chen, and this is Face the Issues. Good evening and welcome to Face the Issues. I'm Sam Chen. Mental health, we all hear about it, we all talk about it, but it affects so much more than just the mind. It affects our well-being, it affects our communities, our neighbors, and that's the passion and heartbeat behind the Community Council Health Systems, who takes a holistic approach to addressing mental health issues. Are joined tonight by the president and CEO, Joe Watkins. He is the host of Joe Watkins State of Independence. He joins us here tonight. Joe, welcome back to Face the Issues. Thank you so much for joining us.
To be with you, Sam. Great to be with you, and great choice of ties, by the way.
Yeah, great minds think alike, and so you're my role model, Joe, and so just trying to be more like my role model here.
You're the best.
Joe, you are currently president and CEO of Community Council Health Systems. We mentioned you host a show here on this network. Recently, you were named by City and State Pennsylvania to the Power of Diversity Black 100 list, one of the 100 most influential African Americans in the state. Last year, you were named on the 50 over 50 list, which I think they got wrong because you're not over 50 years old.
I'm not that old, man.
You look like you're 29, and so I don't know what they did there. But you've had a very long life. You're very well accomplished. And then in the last several years, you joined the Community Council Health Systems as the president and their CEO. Talk to me about your organization. What is it that you do, and why did you decide that you wanted to get involved in the mental health issue?
Well, I was honored to be invited to serve at Community Council Health Systems. It's a great organization. It's been around for quite some time, for a number of decades, and does tremendous work, and quietly. The whole idea is not to trumpet ourselves, but just to do great work for everybody and anybody that comes through our doors. And that's what we try to do. We have people who have a host of mental and behavioral health challenges who come to us every day, and some have been coming to us for a while. And our challenge is to love everybody that comes through those doors, everybody that knocks on our door that needs help. The challenge is to love them all and to try to help them get better. And that's what we've been doing for a good bit of time on a whole host of levels. We work with everybody from younger people, that is students, kids who are in school, in the elementary to middle and high school ages, to certainly to adults, and from adults, young adults to senior citizen adults who have challenges in the mental and behavioral health space. So we're delighted to be doing this. It's an important work. And as we all know, if you watch the news, of course, you see that sadly there's every need indeed for the work that we do because of the challenges that you see presented on television news every day, with somebody acting out or sadly shooting somebody or performing some horrible act because of their state, their mental state, and that. So we're here for them. We're here to change that, and we work with a lot of other organizations, and we have a great organization in Philadelphia in community behavioral health. They do an outstanding job of making sure that people all around the city are served this way. But certainly where we are in West Philadelphia and in some other parts of the city, we're making a strong effort to be part of that good change.
Joe, I appreciate that. You mentioned earlier that your organization services students, elementary, middle school, high school, college students. You work with young adults, you work with middle age, you work with senior citizens. Are the mental health and behavioral health challenges different from age range to age range? Are there different challenges, or are we just looking at variations of the same problem?
No, well, they can be different. Some people may have cognitive challenges and psychological challenges, and other people, of course, their psychological challenges may have been spurred by trauma, by a traumatic event. Oftentimes in young people, many of the young people with whom we work, and they're good kids, but they have had difficult circumstances and/or traumatic events in their lives that have had an impact on their behavior. And so we're here to help them with that and to help them to get back to a healthy place. But the level of the challenge and the kinds of problems that people face really span the generations. Somebody who's older, who's experienced a traumatic event, might likewise be inclined to act out in the same way that a younger person who's experienced a traumatic event might end up acting out. So, all ages, all different kinds of behavioral and mental health challenges. Some people have been abusers of substances, and they're trying to get their lives back on track. We work with them, and we tell them that we love them, and we work with them to get better. And so our place is meant to be a very welcoming kind of a place. But all the challenges that you might expect, and then some. People who've been homeless, people who aren't able to get along with their family members, and they've been dispossessed. We work with everybody.
Joe, I mean, the challenges are different from age range to age range. What about from before to today? You've been the pastor as well. You've worked with a number of different individuals throughout your career. From your sense, have mental health challenges or the kinds of challenges that we see, are they different than they used to be? I mean, everyone talks about the pandemic being a big shift in time, but even before the pandemic versus today, are they similar challenges, or have challenges changed as times have changed?
Well, for better for worse, I'm old enough to be able to look at it comparatively, Sam, over the many decades. And I would say there's been a shift. Certainly, a larger percentage of people with mental health and behavioral health challenges right now. Some of it due, of course, to the pandemic. The pandemic had an impact on mental and behavioral health, and we can't deny that. And then the big challenge we face now in today's world is that, of course, for some people there's a stigma placed upon you if you say you have a mental or behavioral health challenge. And we want that not to be the case. We want people to feel free to come forward and say, you know what, I know I have a problem, I need help, and we'll be there to help them. But we don't want people to be slowed down. We don't want them in any way to not come to us because they're ashamed of the fact that they face a challenge in this area. And for many years, of course, there was a terrible stigma associated with having mental and behavioral health problems, and especially cognitive, and that's not the case anymore. And we're hoping with each passing day that's less the case, that people are more willing to say to what their challenge is, so that we can help them, so they can go out and get help, and so that we can help them.
Why do you think we're seeing more challenges today? Is it because, like you said, Joe, that we're in a society that is increasingly more willing to address mental health? We're more accepting of that people are going to have mental health challenges and than we used to be, and thus more people are willing to say that they have these challenges? Or is there something else that's actually causing communities and societies today to struggle with these mental and behavioral health issues more than they used to?
Well, there are a lot of possible causes for the uptick in mental and behavioral health problems in the country, and certainly in our region. But just think to yourself, Sam, of some of the changes that we've seen societally. Certainly, as families are more fragmented, everybody has a mother and a father, but certainly a biological mother and father, but not all biological mothers and fathers are able to raise their children for one reason or the other. That was the case with my parents. They were not raised by their biological parents, and that happens, I think, to even a greater degree in today's society than it once did. And then not everybody who's charged with raising kids that aren't their birth children is able to handle all the challenge that comes with that, with the trauma of children not knowing who their parents are, and the challenges that may come with being raised by people who are not blood relatives, especially if those blood relatives aren't kind in their treatment to those kids. All that has an impact, along with social media, which is something that didn't exist 30 years ago, but today is a huge driver of behavior and a huge component to life. Almost everybody has a mobile device, and almost everybody is using it. And many Americans subscribe to a social media platform, one or two or a number of them. And for a lot of Americans, that's one of the primary ways in which we communicate with each other. That's how we talk to each other. We tell people we're having a birthday through our various accounts on these social media platforms. And that's had an impact on us also, because social media is an incredible platform, an incredible way to communicate, but it's still not the same as face-to-face communication. And it has an impact of the pressure that comes on social media to keep up with everybody. Most people have a tendency to show their best life on social media, even if it's not their true life. And then there's tremendous pressure on everybody else to try to keep up with that, to show their best life, and to make sure they like what they're supposed to like. Like as in click the button that says like, when they're supposed to. All that's very important in the society today, and it brings about a lot of pressure. And sadly, because of these great technological advances, people are also able to use them for bad purposes. So you have people who are bullying on social media, and I've been hacked on social media a number of times on a couple of my different accounts. People have hacked my accounts and done different things with them. It doesn't personally bother me too much. I mean, I have people to help me try to figure it out, but it's very disquieting for a lot of people. So what happens in society and how we treat each other is even magnified by virtue of the ways now that we communicate, social media being one of the more important ways that we communicate with each other. So these are all lending to the challenges that we have. During the pandemic, we weren't together either. Everybody was siloed, of course. People were forced to stay in place at home and to communicate by virtue of the various platforms. And that's had an impact as well on the mental health of many people, many Americans. So these are all factors, Sam, that make this time a unique time as compared with maybe even 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Yeah, wow. And I mean, and the times have changed just so quickly. Joe, we're going to go to the break. When we come back, I want to talk about the work your organization does. What solutions do you think are effective or maybe not so effective as we address these mental health issues? So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Face the Issues is produced and recorded in the studios of Lighthouse TV. Positively different.
Mental health is something that's often ignored, and it's very close to us when we really think about it. Like, it can happen to anybody.
One time I had a problem dealing with people. I didn't want nobody to know me. That come with my addiction and using and stuff, and that just had me thinking all kinds of crazy ways and stuff.
When I see people who were essentially written off achieve, it makes every day worth the while.
But near the middle of the time that I've been here, I found myself opening up. I wanted to learn how to live. And the reason why I keep coming back here, because it keeps it green for me. You know what I mean? And I still feel growth. Because of, as long as I keep coming here, I know where I've been and where I'm going.
Welcome back to Face the Issues. My guest again is Joe Watkins. He is the president and CEO of the Community Council Health Systems. Joe, when we left off, you were talking about just how different mental health challenges are today. Some of the challenges are different, but also just the time is different. We have more people who are dealing with this. You talked about the impact that social media and the isolation of the pandemic has had. The I want to ask you about your organization. CCHS discusses a holistic approach to mental health. We said from the onset of the show that mental health does not just affect the mind. Health is not compartmentalized, if you are. Well-being is not compartmentalized. What do you mean by a holistic approach, and what does that look like?
Well, we just want to make sure that what we do is evidence-based and that it helps the whole person. So, you can't always tell what's bothering somebody. Somebody comes to you and they're homeless, and you say, oh, well, your problem is a financial one. You don't have a place to live. But ultimately, if you treat the whole person, you find out that maybe the reason why they're homeless is because they're suffering from some significant mental and behavioral health challenges. And that's what caused them to become estranged from their family, to not be able to hold on to a job, or maybe the homelessness was caused because they have a substance abuse problem. And if you just look at the problems on the surface, you aren't likely always to be positioned to solve it, to help them the way you might wish to help them. We want to help the whole person. We want to look at people in a whole way and understand what their situation is and how it got that way, and then really work on helping them based on all the challenges we know that they face. And so far we've made a difference. We did a little video on our with some of the people we serve, and I was just so pleased. I mean, we don't tell them what to say, but they just talked about how community council health systems had really helped them. People who had been addicted to substances, had just not been doing the right thing, had not been exhibiting good, friendly behavioral habits. And they talked about how coming to community council and being involved and getting the therapy they needed and being in that environment and being encouraged by their therapists and counselors and doctors and all the people that we have on board our staff has really helped them become more whole people, to be really on the path back to full health. And that's a good thing. That's why we're in place. We're in place to help people get better. As I say myself, hopefully it's because we love our neighbor like we love ourselves. And I challenge the people that work at community council health systems to do that, to love everybody that comes through the door like you love yourself. Care about these people like you care about yourself. And it's hard sometimes if somebody is combative or comes in exhibiting harsh behavioral traits. It's sometimes difficult, but we have people that are able to look past that and to love the people and to help them get better. And that's why we're here. That's what we're here to do. Yeah.
Joe, you brought something that's interesting, which is we sometimes treat the symptoms of a situation instead of actually getting to the root of it. We almost kind of put a Band-Aid on something instead of really getting to the root. Your example is homelessness, maybe just be a symptom of something that's a much, much deeper. And then this challenge of, I think somebody watches this show and they say, hey, that's so great what Joe Watkins and his team are doing. That's so, it's wonderful. They're helping underprivileged communities. And yet, at the same time, that work can be challenging in and of itself. It's not every person that comes through necessarily likes the help they're getting or is going to be treating the staff respectfully. And so I appreciate you highlighting that. Let me ask you about just kind of solutions to mental health. You guys take a holistic approach, but there are a lot of people who kind of do this Band-Aid approach where they just deal with the symptoms. Do you see mental health getting, like our treatment of it, do you see a trajectory where as a society we'll continue to improve and actually be able to help individuals and communities root out the root problems? Or is this something that you think is going to get worse and worse?
I hope. I certainly hope that in time we'll see improvement, that we'll see fewer challenges than we currently see. I wrote a book a few years ago, a 30-page book. It's not very long. It's one of the shortest books that's probably ever been written, but it's called The New PC, Practical Consideration. And the whole idea is to talk about, for me, was to talk about how we treat each other in work and politics and in our daily life matters. And so we really need to consider how we treat each other. That really matters a great deal. It has a huge impact on the well-being of human beings, how they're treated, that is. And so I think there's a piece of this that can't be legislated, that all the money in the world can't change. It's the heart of human beings. If you could change people's hearts, if there was some way to encourage people to actually love each other and to care about each other and to not just cast each other aside, imagine what the world would look like. Imagine if we could actually do what the gospel says. You know, when the question was asked, what must we do to inherit eternal life? And the question was thrown back on the person who asked the question. He said, well, I'm supposed to love God with all of my heart, mind, soul, and strength, and my neighbor as myself. And Jesus, the Christ, says, do this and you will live. And he's absolutely right. I mean, if imagine what the world would look like if we actually loved each other the way the Good Samaritan loved the man who'd been beaten and left for dead. I mean, that in that story, the Good Samaritan takes that man and puts him on his own horse and tends to his wounds, takes him to the equivalent of a hospital and says, please restore this man to health, and when I come back, I'll pay the bill. And that's love, that's caring. He didn't just pass by the man and say, not my problem. He said, no, you know, if my neighbor's not well, then I can't be satisfied until I've done something to help as best I can. If we adopt that kind of attitude, I mean, if neighborhoods and cities and towns around the Commonwealth and around the country adopted that kind of an attitude, that does exist in some places more so than others. But if we have that kind of a sense of it, that you know everybody matters and how we treat each other matters, and you know what, the problems of people who we don't know are our problems too, and what can we do to help it? How can we solve it? What can we do? How can we create healing in our own families? You know, where there's been division. How can we help people who've been at odds with each other to love each other and to forgive each other for the things that they may have done that aren't right? You know, all those things would have a huge impact on the quality of our society and certainly the quality of life. And there would be less mental stress if there was more love and caring. But there's no way to legislate that. And there's no way to raise capital to cause people to be kind. But the hope is that as many of us as have that love in their heart, perhaps it can impact somebody else. You know, I'm a Christian person. I hope that the way I follow Christ inspires other people to follow the same Christ that I follow. I hope, because what they see is hopefully my example more than so even what I say. So I hope my example looks like my words, and I hope my words look like the words of Jesus, you know, in terms of loving my neighbor like I love myself. It's a challenge for our society.
Yeah, and I think it's a great challenge for all of us. We talk often about those who struggle with mental health issues, those who get help. I know last time you were on, I asked you what your message was for them, and I think this is a great message for all of us. How do we be the example for a world that so desperately needs a good example of life lived out with truth and virtue? And Joe, you set that example for me and for so many others, and I want to thank you for that. We're going to go to break, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Issues. Joe, thanks again for joining us, but more importantly for the work that you do. When we close out the show, we always like to get to know our guests a little bit better. At the very, very start, you talked about why you got into this work specifically with mental and behavioral health. You've had a long, illustrious career, right? Right now, you're the president and CEO of the Community Council Health Systems. You host Joe Watkins Day of Independence. You're a political analyst on MSNBC. You worked in the Bush White House, Bush Senior, number 41. Joe,
that tells you how old I am, Sam. I mean, people all the time say, "Oh, you probably worked for George W. Bush," and I have to confess it was actually for his father. So that tells you how old I am.
There we go. We get young people who watch this and they go, "Oh, I would love to be Joe Watkins. I would love to have the career Joe Watkins has." What advice do you give for young people who aspire to live a life that's similar to the one you've lived, or to do the things you've done?
We all have our own path to tread, Sam. And of course, you know, all of us, you know, if you look at people's resumes, oftentimes it looks like just one steady line upward. the reality is that for all of us, life is full of ups and downs. There are challenges and there are successes and also failures in this life. And the one thing that I tried to do, and I still try to do it, is when I became a Christian person, I told God that I would go where he sent me. I would do what he wanted me to do. And he has been so very kind to let me go so many different places and do so many different things, and to really be blessed far beyond I would ever have imagined I would be blessed, and in different ways. And I'm so grateful for that. I just have to thank God for all that. But the reality is that I would just say to everybody the same thing that I would hope for myself, which is just seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And all these things will be added to you. Don't go after notoriety or fame or money, or those are all fleeting things. None of this stuff lasts. None of it lasts. Even famous people are forgotten after a short period of time. But what does last is God's kingdom. That's forever. And you should seek that, because one day we'll have to stand before our Maker and give account for our lives, answer them for what we've done while we were here, how we used the time that he gave us while we were here. So I say seek first God's kingdom, the kingdom of God, and his righteousness. Try to do the right thing while you're here by other people. Love them like you love yourself, and then just let the Lord take you where he might.
Yeah, great advice. Seek God's kingdom, continue to work hard, and trust God. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the work you do and for the example you set.
Thanks so much, Sam.
That is our show for tonight. I want to thank Joe Watkins for joining us. I want to thank each of you for tuning in, and we hope to see you again right back here next week. My name is Sam Chen. On behalf of all of us here at Face the Issues, thank you and good night.